Good morning, those who are connecting from the US, and good afternoon to those who are connecting from Turkey. Thank you for joining us for day 3 of the 38th American-Turkish Conference, brought to you by Turkey-US Business Council in Istanbul and the US Chamber of Commerce. We will begin on this Wednesday morning with remarks from the Deputy Secretary of State, the Honorable Stephen Biegun. Following that, we have a fireside chat featuring the U.S. Undersecretary of State for Economic Growth, Energy, and the Environment. Then we'll have 2 parallel private sector panels on construction and infrastructure and the role of the digital economy before concluding our penultimate day of the ATC with remarks by the Honorable David Satterfield, the U.S. Ambassador to Turkey. We look forward to hosting you today and thank you for all your time with us. Have a wonderful day and please enjoy the conference.
Chalin, thank you for that. Tyke is such a strong partner for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And ladies and gentlemen, whether you're in the United States, good morning, or in Turkey, good afternoon. Thank you for staying with us and being engaged throughout this conference. We're on the 3rd day of a 4-day wonderful conference that is highlighting the commercial and political realities of the U.S.-Turkish commercial relationship. And in that context, we really have a very special pair of guests this morning with us to really focus on the geopolitical relationship and the economic relationship from the perspective of the State Department. So we're going to have a session on the U.S.-Turkey geopolitical and economic update from 2 distinguished leaders that I've gotten to know well over many years. First, we're going to hear from Deputy Secretary of State Steve Biegun. Steve has served in and out of government, serving as National Security Advisor to one of the most prominent senators, Senator Frist, serving previously, obviously, in the U.S. government, and now serving as Deputy Secretary of State. He's also been in the private sector, having been at Ford Motor Company, where he also played a very prominent role in helping Ford navigate issues all over the world. We're delighted that he is joining us this morning. You also later hear in a fireside chat with me from Undersecretary of State Keith Krach, and I'll give him a proper introduction when he talks about strategic, economic, and commercial priorities. There are 3 takeaways so far from this conference, and I think Steve Biegun will talk about them in his own right. First, we've heard a strong message from many of you for the greater need for bilateral cooperation between the United States and Turkish government leaders. We heard this from the Turkish Minister of Defense. We heard this from Secretary Wilbur Ross, Secretary of Commerce. We heard this from the Turkish Minister of Trade and many other officials who've been with us throughout these few days. The consensus is that the U.S.-Turkish relationship is one that is strategic and mutually beneficial among NATO allies, but not without its challenges. We must work together to foster trust and strengthen our partnership between the governments and resolve to work on outstanding issues. The second key point has been that this conference really has exemplified the reason that the U.S.-Turkish commercial and economic engagement is such a fundamental pillar in the overall bilateral relationship. We've talked about the $100 billion goal of this economic relationship that both President Trump and President Erdogan have laid out. We talked about the aspirational goal of ultimately a U.S.-Turkish free trade agreement. These are 2 steps towards building more trust and strengthening our overall economic partnership. The third thing we've talked about is tangible business opportunities that will exist in many sectors, such as defense and aerospace, healthcare, digital economy, energy and sustainability, women in business, and construction and infrastructure. You'll hear more about that this morning. Closer alignment on regulatory issues and reforms that will unlock the true potential of this U.S.-Turkish trade and investment relationship are critical to boost the economic opportunities for both countries during this very difficult and challenging period in our history. The U.S.-Turkish relationship is at an important crossroads. And I think it's very important that this conference at this time talk about our long-term strategic relationship while also thinking about specific ways that we can make a difference to steer our countries closer together through greater prosperity. It's with that I am delighted to introduce Deputy Secretary Biegun, who himself has played such a critical role in U.S. engagement around the world over these last few years. Deputy Secretary Biegun, we look forward to your comments on the geopolitical landscape and reflections on the state of the U.S.-Turkish relationship. Deputy Secretary Biegun.
My greetings to friends and colleagues here in the United States as well as Turkey who have joined this virtual meeting today. I want to make a special shout out to my former colleagues in Istanbul. And while we can't see each other today directly, it's great to join you virtually here in the conference today. I want to thank the Chamber for inviting me to join you today for the 38th Annual American-Turkish Conference. It's really a pleasure to speak with you. And you'll have the chance, as you said, to continue the discussion with our Undersecretary for Economics, Keith Krach, who's going to speak a lot more about how we're seeking to advance economic well-being together with Turkey across the globe. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to highlight, alongside colleagues from the Turkish government, our decades-long partnership as NATO allies and our cooperation in a number of areas, including the commercial and people-to-people ties that bind our two countries so closely together. We have a lot to build on, but we also are in a period in which opportunistic and transactional decisions are straining the alliance. I'd like to spend some time today talking about how those of us who value the U.S.-Turkey relationship can reinforce our common strategic interests and democratic principles and look for opportunities to reinforce our alliance relationship. As this group well knows, bilateral trade underpins the U.S.-Turkey relationship, from our decades-long aerospace partnerships to new collaborations in the tech sector. Amid the cost and the human toll of global economic disruptions of the global COVID-19 pandemic, our cooperation has been a vital success. Turkish manufacturing firms were quick to pivot toward the U.S. market and have thus far supplied more than $110 million in personal protective equipment that healthcare workers needed to save American lives. To those of you here today who are involved in this tremendous effort, it is my honor to thank you. Our two countries are also bound together by our commitment to collective defense through NATO. In the 7 decades since Turkey joined the alliance, nearly every aspect of the world has changed significantly. The threats we collectively face are myriad and have intensified. A strong U.S.-Turkey relationship is as important now as it has ever been. As a more than 9-year civil war continues on Turkey's borders in Syria, Turkey faces security threats from terrorist groups like ISIS, as well as malign influence from Russia, Iran, and others. Turkey and the United States are both members of the global coalition to defeat ISIS. Though ISIS's physical caliphate has been destroyed through our collective efforts, we still have important work to do together to ensure that ISIS and its affiliates are unable to reconstitute a territorial enclave or threaten our homelands, people, and interests. I want to talk a little bit more about Russia here because it's Russia's malign activities across the Eastern Mediterranean that are destabilizing and dangerous for both Turkey and the United States. In Syria, the March 5th ceasefire in Idlib province has saved lives and prevented further destabilizing displacements of people. The United States has strongly backed Turkey's efforts to counter Syrian regime and Russian aggression in Idlib, and the United States remains committed to working with Turkey to advance a political solution in Syria and ensuring the permanent defeat of ISIS. Meanwhile, Russia has enabled the criminal Assad regime's vicious campaign against the Syrian people. As noted repeatedly by the UN Commission of Inquiry, the regime continues to perpetrate crimes against humanity. The same body has stated that Russia, too, may be guilty of war crimes for attacks against civilians and civilian infrastructure. In Libya, Russia and its proxy, the Wagner Group, have fueled the conflict to advance Russia's geopolitical aims and create a permanent toehold in North Africa, potentially threatening our interests and those of our NATO allies. The United States strongly urges the withdrawal of all foreign forces from Libya. We are at a critical juncture in Libya right now, with cautious optimism on a nascent UN-facilitated intra-Libyan political process. We know Moscow may seek to derail these efforts, and we therefore urge Turkey to actively support UN mediation and to continue working through established international and alliance mechanisms and not with unilateral deals. If Turkey seeks to be a positive influence in the region, its interests would be best served by aligning with the international community's vision for peace. We must all support Libyan voices seeking an end to the conflict, with full respect for Libya's sovereignty and territorial integrity. In the fight against ISIS and in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other places around the world where NATO allies advance our collective security, the United States and Turkey are key partners for one another. This partnership serves both of our interests as well as those of our other 28 allies. In addition to the international arenas in which we have partnered, as you all know, American and Turkish business communities have also worked closely together for positive outcomes in both of our countries. Cost-effective U.S. liquid natural gas is helping fuel Turkey's energy diversification. Turkey is the third largest importer of U.S. LNG in Europe in 2020. This is decreasing Turkey's reliance on Russian and Iranian energy sources while ensuring that Turkey can import hydrocarbon resources at fair market prices. I and my counterparts in the Turkish government understand that our private sectors are eager to form close partnerships in the future. Your work here today advances our joint goal of reaching that $100 billion in annual bilateral trade, a goal to which President Trump and President Erdogan committed in 2019. This would represent a significant increase from our current trade volume of $27 billion, and it would be a game changer for Turkish firms, for U.S. businesses, and for consumers across the world. Against this backdrop of opportunity, and on the foundation of almost 70 years as allies, I am also compelled to be clear that there are significant and growing concerns in the United States in regard to a number of Turkish policies. In order to realize our relationship's full potential, we must work together to address and overcome these stress points in areas of fundamental disagreement. To list a few, when Turkey procured Russia's S-400 air defense system in July 2019, this added a significant point of disagreement to the relationship. The S-400 is fundamentally incompatible with NATO's systems, and especially with Turkey's founding membership in the F-35 program. As a result, Turkey has been suspended from the F-35 partnership. We also have expressed deep concern about rising tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean. Conflict between our NATO allies, Turkey and Greece, only benefits common adversaries who seek to sow division and transatlantic disunity. We urge Turkey to cease provocative maritime operations and steps that are raising tensions in the region. In recent days, we welcome Ankara's de-escalatory actions, including the return of Turkish ships from areas subject to competing claims. We hope to see continued bilateral talks between Turkey and Greece to further reduce tensions, and we encourage both countries to continue working through NATO toward a technical agreement on deconfliction measures. Countries in the region must resolve their disagreements diplomatically and peacefully. More broadly on maritime issues, we remain deeply concerned about Turkey's drilling activity in waters off of Cyprus. Such activity also continues to raise tensions unacceptably. While the United States does not take a position on how other countries delimit their maritime boundaries, this should be done through peaceful dialogue and not through provocative unilateral action. We object to Turkey's continued engagement at the highest levels with Hamas, a U.S.-designated foreign terrorist organization which harms Turkey's standing in the international community. And finally, we remain gravely concerned by democratic backsliding in Turkey, including indictments of leaders from civil society, media, political opposition, and business, along with prolonged pretrial detentions. The rights to freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, and association are fundamental values for any democracy. These freedoms are also important to Turkey's vitality and its growth as a vibrant, knowledge-based economy. I encourage our Turkish partners to take seriously these concerns, but also to understand they come from an ally and friend that seeks to preserve and deepen our relationship in every dimension. But this will best succeed with a reaffirmation of the shared interests and shared values that have united us for the past 70 years. Let me again thank the U.S.-Turkey Business Council and the Turkey-U.S. Business Council for the opportunity to address the American-Turkish Conference. Your organizations have played a pivotal role in helping strengthen the U.S.-Turkey relationship. A strong Turkey, anchored in the West, makes for a strong NATO, a strong bilateral economic relationship, and a partnership rooted in democratic principles. Both the United States and Turkey need your strong voices, your relationships, and your insights to help our two governments work through the strategic security challenges that we face together and to enhance our bilateral relationship. A strong U.S.-Turkey bilateral relationship rooted in democratic principles will serve as an important reinforcement to the NATO treaty that binds us. Thank you again for your dedication to this special relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Biegun, for being with us today. I think you underscored in your remarks the importance of the relationship. You underscored that Turkey and the United States are allies, they're friends, and they're key partners. But you did not shy away from some of the geopolitical challenges that exist in the relationship that must be overcome in order to reach the full potential of our relationship. I was glad that you highlighted the fact that there are some economic opportunities that underscore why this relationship is also important, not just from a geopolitical standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint. And it's with that I want to transition now to Undersecretary of State for Economic Growth, Energy, and the Environment, Keith Krach, my good friend, who is joining us today for a fireside chat on the U.S.-Turkey strategic economic and commercial engagement. Those of you who are being introduced to Keith Krach for the first time, you really need to understand this guy's background. He's done it all in business on so many levels. He's not just a successful businessman, he's a successful entrepreneur, former chairman and CEO of two of our most innovative U.S. companies, DocuSign and Ariba. He brings an enormous wealth of experience in the technology sector, which he is playing a part in really driving change from the U.S. government standpoint and how we look at technology issues. Across the board, he's been engaged: automotive, energy, engineering, education, and commerce. And State Department's been lucky to have him. The U.S. government's been lucky, and we're thrilled that he's joining us here today to really talk about how we can propel the U.S.-Turkish relationship in a more innovative way. I will say that there are positive examples of how this is happening in the U.S.-Turkish relationship. One that I want to highlight because it speaks to the Undersecretary's past is the Ford company, one that also Undersecretary Biegun will recognize, which is the large joint venture in Turkey through which it manufactures and exports vehicles to Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and beyond from Turkey. So there is obviously an example in the automotive area. There's other examples. Turkey's first unicorn was born with the support of U.S. technology platforms and investment. U.S. company Zigna purchased the Turkish company Peak Games for nearly $2 billion. So these are just two of many examples of the cooperation between the United States and Turkey in really innovative way. But there's more to be done on the strategic side. There are more investments that the United States and Turkey could be making together. And with that, I'd love to hear Keith Krach, Undersecretary of State, offer his views on how we can grow this relationship in dynamic ways and boost strategic cooperation. So, Undersecretary of State Keith Krach, thank you for being with us, the 38th annual forum of the U.S. American-Turkish Council. It's tremendous to have you here. I know you're on the road. And I know you've been on the road throughout this COVID-19 period, which for many of us has kept us grounded. But I know you keep going out on the road to advocate for America's business interests. Tell us where you are, first off, and tell us a little bit about the work you're doing on 5G and how it relates to the U.S.-Turkish relationship. The floor is yours.
Sure, Myron. And by the way, it's good to see you again, even remotely. And I've always enjoyed the fireside chats that we've done together, literally everywhere. And, so I just got back from Taiwan, where I met with President Tsai for an economic dialogue, as well as honoring the former President Lee, who is really the father of democracy for Taiwan. So it was an absolutely great honor. I came back to Washington for a day and landed in Luxembourg yesterday. Had a great set of meetings. We actually had all our European ambassadors there. Also met with their officials, the foreign minister, finance minister, and now I'm in Estonia, the great country for Estonia, and for a guy who's a battle-scarred, 30-year Silicon Valley entrepreneur who built companies by creating new categories. The country of Estonia is like a paradise because they've achieved something in the digital area that no other countries achieved, and that's nationwide digital ID, and that lays the groundwork for so many things, whether it is e-commerce, e-signature, e-contracts, e-healthcare records, e-voting, e-census. And I just finished a press conference with their foreign minister, and I said, that's why I call it E-Stonia. So, and we're talking a lot about NATO and the 3 Cs and the partnership in terms of NATO in the area of the clean network, as well as the 3 Cs in terms of Blue Dot Network and the clean network. And then I go on to about 8 other countries. I will be visiting with NATO, the EU, Germany, Austria, Spain, Portugal, Albania. So it's a power-packed schedule. And really the purpose of my trip, Myron, is one on economic collaboration, focusing also a lot in terms of technology and the clean network. And I think that this is something that is just so relevant to Turkey, the great country of Turkey. I've spent some great time there, and I love the people, and I've taken my family, and it's just been great. And so the big one is the secure, trusted 5G. And this is the clean network, which is a comprehensive approach to addressing the long-term threat in terms of data privacy, security, and trusted collaboration. And the clean network is rooted in internationally accepted digital trust standards, like the Prague Principles, like the 5G EU toolbox, and it is an enduring strategy that's built on a coalition of partners. So if I look at these 5G systems, 5G is the backbone for these communication networks, but you also have the associated, I call them accessories or extensions, things like cloud, cable, applications, you name it, everything that comes off that. And one thing we talk about, you're only as strong as your weakest link from a system standpoint, from a technology standpoint. But that analogy holds true for NATO. So now there's over 20 countries that are on the clean network by the virtue of agreements, regulations, laws, or all their telco vendors chose to go with trusted, clean vendors. And so these systems, the NATO security is also as strong as its weakest link as well. And so I'm very focused on doing whatever we can, and our partners, whether it's Estonia, Romania, UK, France, Albania, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, all these countries that are on the clean network, to highly encourage the country of Turkey, because what I've found in terms of expanding economic collaboration on all fronts, the key. Everybody wants the American private sector come in, and particularly the innovation side. And there's 40 of the country's biggest telcos on the clean network. Companies are on the clean network, Oracle, because these companies they need to be able to trust the 5G telecommunication system. So that's an important thing.
So Keith, let me pick up quickly because I know your time is limited today. President Erdogan and President Trump laid out this $100 billion ambition for the economic relationship. How do we restart the commercial and strategic dialogues between the two governments? Can the State Department and Commerce lead in this endeavor? How do we get Turkey to be part of this program that you just described, the Clean Network, and how do they become engaged with you? What do they need to do? What's different about their actions that you need from them in order to make this realized?
Yeah, I think the first thing, the initial thing, the basic thing is that when their telecommunication companies are choosing their 5G suppliers, make sure it comes from trusted vendors. And, I've had so many conversations with CEOs of telcos, and, they're saying, well, Huawei is cheaper. They sign an agreement, no back doors. We're only putting them on the edge. And I said, well, first of all, from a guy from Silicon Valley, the back door agreement, there's no such thing. We would call it a head fake. Is a front door every day because you're updating that software. So, like it or not, the technology companies have the keys to that kingdom. And the other thing is, hey, we'll just put it on the edge or just the antennas. You're only strong as your weakest link in a system. And, they say, well, it's a lot cheaper. I go, well, are they charging you for it? Because they're giving it away in a lot of places. And the reason is because they want that data, that information. So the question I pose to them is, this is not a technical decision. It's basically, who do you trust? So do you trust two Scandinavian vendors? U.S. is not one of the main folks. There's all kinds of things coming down the pipe. I know, and Turkey's involved with it in terms of Open RAN. Or do you trust vendors who come from a country that has a surveillance state, and they have a National Intelligence Act that requires any company, any Chinese company, state-owned or otherwise, or any Chinese citizen, to turn over any information, proprietary technology, intellectual property, data, upon request, to the Chinese Communist Party or the People's Liberation Army, or suffer the consequences. And so it really boils down to that. And I think over the last 6 months, the tide has really turned. And Huawei's deals are evaporating. And I think what has happened is the citizens of the world have woken up to the truth about the Chinese Communist Party's 3 C's doctrine, and that is concealment, co-option, and coercion. And if you think about it, the pandemic is a result of the concealment of the virus. The co-option of Hong Kong totally eviscerated its citizens' freedoms. And then when you look at the coercion in the 2 million Uyghurs and other Muslim groups in the Xinjiang internment camps, it's grown into some of the worst horrific human rights abuses in a long time. Forced sterilization, abortion, torture, ingestion of drugs, and now forced labor that they send all over China, and now all over the One Belt, One Road, which really takes job opportunities away from the local nations, where that One Belt, One Road is at. Is one of the Southeastern Asian nations. He goes, hey, it's not the One Belt, One Road. It's the One Belt, One Way toll road to Beijing, because everything is going back there. So anyway, I think
Keith,
that's basic one.
Right. Let me just because I know your time is limited. I want to talk about construction and infrastructure and how it links to technology. Firms are very renowned in construction and infrastructure, and so are U.S. companies. And I think the partnership there in places like Iraq and Afghanistan and regionally where Turkey is well positioned because of its strong networks. I think this is a huge opportunity, whether it's helping develop embassies, installations, whether it's working on big mega projects in the region. Turkey and the United States should be an alternative to the Chinese firms for all the reasons you laid out. How do we make that materialize? And how does digital technology play a role in that? Because I think this is a huge area. Your good friend, Adam Buller, who runs a DFC, can be a part of this, financing these projects. Yeah. How do we make this happen? How do we create the dialogues between Turkey and the United States? Sector will support this because we see it, the opportunities.
Myron, this is a perfect example where it's just a great partnership opportunity between Turkey and the United States. I call it a 60-60 deal. Both parties get the best part of the deal. Because and this is where the Blue Dot Network comes in, which if you think about it, it's clean infrastructure, clean financing, clean debt. It represents an alternative to that one belt, one way toll road to Beijing. And the fact of the matter is, the United States doesn't have a lot of construction companies. Turkey's some of the best in the world. And by the way, and getting financed by the Development Finance Corp. And I just shared the Adam's board meeting. And one of the things that we're really focused on is increasing the infrastructure projects, the classic ones, the highways, the roads, the ports, the dams, but also on a technology standpoint, that infrastructure. And the great news is since we reformulated the DFC and took it from 30 billion to 60 billion, we also did it so that the DFC can also take equity in the deal. But also, I think a key one for Turkey is the United States doesn't have to be the nexus of the project. So in other words, the Turkish companies can be the prime, the lead. And that's really what we want. In the Blue Dot Network, what our goal is all the 3Cs companies signing up to that. So I think there's a lot of great opportunities, particularly in the construction industry for Turkey.
You have one last word. What's the last sentence you want to deliver to this conference with a couple hundred people listening to you about the U.S.-Turkish relationship? Before I let you go.
Well, the partnership between Turkey and the United States is built on mutual friendship. As Steve Biegun said, we share common values, and I always say trust is the basis of any relationship. You buy from people you trust, you partner with people you trust, and it's about putting actions in, putting those words into action, and also uniting against a common adversary. So if you look at, for example, what the Chinese Communist Party is doing is that they are extending with their surveillance state, their Orwellian Big Brother surveillance state. They are extending that great China one-way firewall where all the data comes in for their own purposes, but none comes out. And then from a propaganda standpoint, all goes out, but the truth doesn't come in. And this is against our values at both Turkey and the U.S. So I think, that's the basis of it. We've got a great history of it, and we really want to take it to the next level. And everything we can do in these areas, we want to encourage our private sector partners. I love that goal of $100 billion in terms of trade, and also to bring in that innovation sector, and really, pick these sectors like the construction industry. We can really focus on and really do a lot of great work together. So I really appreciate Myron, this opportunity to talk to the U.S. Turkey Business Council and everything that you do from an Amgen standpoint. So thanks so much. Thanks for your time. And the United States State Department, as well as the Commerce Department, is here to help you. I'll tell you what, after spending 30 years in the private sector, I never realized what the U.S. government, State Department can do. And we're here to help, and we're here to serve countries around the world, because our objective at the end of the day is global economic security and advance peace and prosperity in the world. So, Myron, thanks so much.
Well, Undersecretary Keith Krach, thank you for your insights and perspectives. I want you to stay healthy on all those travels that you're doing. None of us are traveling like you are. Stay healthy and prosper. We will follow up with you. The Turkish and U.S. companies that are involved in the U.S.-Turkish Business Council and the Turkish-U.S. Business Council want to work on this 5G deployment in Turkey. We want to work with you to find solutions. We want to encourage commercial dialogues that the private sector sponsors and supports. And we want to find a path forward, not just in construction infrastructure, but in energy and new technologies. And to do that, we need to build trust between each other. And we're looking forward to the partnership. And thank you for all you do for American business. Carry forward.
Thank you, Myron.
Thank you.
God bless. Bye-bye.